1. For quick context, all of us are about 16, give or take a year. We're all nerds. I named us after characters in the RPG campaign that all of us except Booker and Harrison are in. And normally would have no problem with someone who is geeky or likes anime. With that out of the way, here we go. A few months ago, Twitch, the birthday boy, invited us all to a distanced outdoor hang for his birthday. It was going to be a few hours of eating pizza and having fun. Ren had plans already and couldn't come, leaving me as the only girl going, which wasn't a problem at all, or so I thought. We all slowly arrive and start up a conversation. Booker doesn't know us very well. He mixed up my name with Ren's, despite seeing us both almost every day. But we start getting along fine. Nothing about him gives off the bad vibes you always hear about Neckbeards having. The party starts with some chit-chat. I realize I'm the only one sitting down, and stand up to make an obligatory short joke about myself. Hope, who is very tall, also makes a few short jokes, prompting this to happen. You know, my mom never calls me short. She likes to use other words for it. Like what? Usually fun-sized or petite.
Don't worry, CJ. Petite girls are always the best at anime.
This was the first red flag. We all laugh nervously. I shrug it off as a bad joke. A little while later, Booker is babbling on about something.
It's like I shouldn't say swear words.
Why not? Says Jude, my boyfriend. Booker points at me.
Well, I thought you shouldn't swear in front of girls.
I'm dumbfounded. All I can say back is this. I'm a girl, not a toddler, dude.
Oh, okay. Penis!
He says with a grin on his face. I'm genuinely confused now. This is around when Jude and I start messaging our group chat, which includes Hope, Twitch, and Ren. By this point, we have all told Booker many times that these comments make us uncomfortable, but he hasn't listened. I have to mention that Twitch is a fairly good-looking kid, which is most likely what prompted Booker to say this.
You know, I think I might be a good harem anime protagonist. Twitch would be a really good one.
No. Booker went on to say that Jude would also make a good harem anime protagonist, which made everyone even more grossed out. I've spent most of my time just giving help me please looks to Hope and Jude. Now we're sort of openly joking with each other about how uncomfortable the situation is. Because Booker clearly wasn't picking up that we wanted him to stop despite telling him to his face to stop. I worry that maybe he thought we were laughing with him and not at him. I don't know when, but at one point Jude, being the great guy he is, called out Booker. It wasn't much, just asking him to stop and tone it down. Booker said some kind of apology.
Sorry you're uncomfortable.
Before immediately going back to being awful. He starts going on a lengthy rant about a harem anime he likes, which obviously none of us wanted to hear about. Pardon me if I get the name wrong, but I believe he was talking about Konosuba. Hope, who is openly asexual, says they were made to see one episode and it was overly sexual. Either way, he explains that it has 3 female main characters, including a minor, and goes into detail on their looks and minimal personalities. He explains this to a vocally uncomfortable crowd for at least 15 minutes. We all press him about the fact that he watches a harem anime with a minor character.
Well, you know, the age of consent in Japan is 14.
We yell at him for this being the grossest excuse we've ever heard.
It's okay, they only sexualize the minor a little bit.
He said it like a joke, but that was the breaking point for me. Thank God the party ended soon after. Various other Booker things said at the party. Near the beginning of the party, Booker asked us if he were making us uncomfortable, and we told him we'd tell him if he crossed the line. At first we just said, "Booker, the line," in a jokey way to get him to stop, whilst not hurting his feelings. He did not stop. We eventually resorted to telling it to his face that he was making us uncomfortable. He still did not stop, stating that the security guards at the school don't like him because they're black, and they only like black kids. One of his self-proclaimed proudest moments is calling a girl a bitch to her face. Describes things he likes sexual or not as sexy. Uses female instead of woman or girl. Openly says that hentai is one of his favorite anime genres, but he made it very clear that he only watches the good hentai for the plot. When I brought up that I liked visual novels, he got really excited and said he did too. I like murder mystery ones like Zero Escape or Danganronpa. He liked anime dating sims. He spent the next 10 minutes talking about anime dating sims. He acted really surprised by my taste in games. Referred to other girls as flat? I somehow forgot this or blocked it out of my mind, but he apparently said this about me too, to my face. Talked about boobs. A lot. Just didn't let anyone else talk. If any of us were able to start up a different conversation, he'd interrupt it and somehow bring it back to what he wanted to talk about. Almost immediately after the party, we all messaged each other with general idea being, "What the fuck was that?" Weirdly enough, Booker messaged us with an apology. This is transcribed from our messages.
I wasn't too over the top, was I? I say some rather profane things sometimes, but it is all in jest.
I think you went a bit too far, said Jude.
Yeah, that's fair. Apologies. But at least everyone had a good time.
I was uncomfortable at times, but yeah, still was a fun party. Jude agreed.
Okay, I'm really sorry about that.
I'm glad everyone could have fun, said Twitch.
I personally had a great time, so props to Twitch for everything.
In retrospect, we may have been too kind. While this was the end of the terrible party, I will summarize one last thing that happened. Booker and Jude have a class together and much later got into a political argument. Pretty much it somehow became Jude arguing that condoning racism is racist, and Booker telling him that,
I care about you, and don't want your opinions to get you in trouble someday.
2. Our star of the story is Beard. He was a large guy, around 300 pounds or so, and maybe 6 feet. Long, scraggly hair with a balding spot on top of his head. He insisted on wearing clothes that were too small for him, so his large hirsute gut would hang out from below his shirt if he did the slightest arm movements. And of course, he also had a very scraggly neckbeard and mutton chop thing going on for facial hair. I honestly think he was trying to grow his mustache too, but it was so thin and wispy that it looked like stray squiggles from an errant pen had attacked his upper lip. And instead of the traditional fedora, he had a cheap bowler that he had purchased at a local party supply store. You know the ones I'm talking about that you throw away after a single use? At the time he had this thing for at least as long as I've known him. My ex said he's been wearing it for at least 4 years or so. When questioned why he didn't buy a real bowler hat at least, he would say, I did, but girls say I look better in this one. Our next cast member is me, EP. I was an event planner, hence EP. When I first met Beard, and it sort of fits this story, so why not? I was introduced to Beard through my ex-boyfriend, Monk. Back then, I was working for a local events planning company. It was my job to set up for special functions, such as press conferences, community events, parades, etc. This involved lots of prep and planning and tons of labor on the day of the events. We had to transport, unload, and set up lots of chairs, tables, decorations, speakers, refreshments, etc. This was always exhausting work, and everyone would inevitably get sweaty and dirty. We always had some body spray as part of our work kit. Usually Axe. Gross, I know. The girls tended to always bring their own personal brand, and only Axe themselves if they absolutely had to. With that, our story begins as Monk is getting home from his weekly D&D session.
Hey, guess what happened?
TPK?
No, thank God. We kicked butt.
He then went on to tell me about how their party had tricked some genie thing into granting them an extra wish or something like that, all thanks to his quick thinking. That's nice, babe. Sounds like you had a fun time. So what happened, though, that you wanted to tell me? Monk, who was still super excited to regale me with his triumph over the genie, screwed up his face a bit and was like, yeah.
Beard got fired. He asked me if you could get him a job at your work since you were mentioning that you had openings.
A couple weeks prior, at one of our friendly get-togethers where girls were allowed, D&D was boys only. I brought up that my job had openings, and my boss basically said if I found someone I liked, the job would be theirs.
Come on, baby. You know he's a good person at heart, and he's a really hard worker.
I know he's nice and stuff, but Bowlerbeard has always been super nice to me, but there was that little nagging thing. Like sometimes he'd say weird things that were kind of condescending towards women, like, a man should be doing that, or, that's something a female wouldn't understand. He was also guilty of using milady, and I mean a lot, like a lot. Or, to change it up, he'd use dame, damsel, wench, etc. Disclaimer, he hung around a very avid Renaissance fair group. And before I get roasted, I get it, it's part of the fair life. That's great, I get that. But, I mean he would call these girls wench at places like the store, laser tag, mini golf, whatever the heck we were doing at the time. It was always so awkward because he was loud about it, and people would just stare at our group or give that super awkward laugh like, funny stuff, weirdos. Please, baby, just give him a chance. Now, I loved my ex deeply at the time, so his cute little puppy dog eyes melted me, and I would do just about anything for him, so I said, fine, I can give him a try, but you need to tell him that this is my reputation on the line. Please, please, please don't let him embarrass me. And with that, Monk exclaimed with joy, thanking me and giving me exaggerated kisses all over my face. This is something he calls a smooch attack. It's cheesy, I know, but I love them. So fast forward and we get Immunobeard past the interview, paperwork, etc., and he gets hired. As the senior staff member, I'm in charge when the main boss isn't there, which she hardly ever is. Her job was more office-based with planning, ordering, and dispatching. So I'm the go-to gal for things in the field. For the first couple of weeks, Bowlerbeard is doing great. He's showing up on time, works hard, clothes mostly fit. He does still insist on wearing his fake bowler hat though, but this golden time was not to last. Some of my female co-workers started asking me about him and asking if he was always so condescending to women. I groaned. Ugh, why? What did he do? That's the thing, he won't let us do anything. He always insists on unloading and carrying everything, saying, "This is a man's job to lift things." And women are not good at electronics, so I'll set up the speakers and mics. He says we should just concentrate on fluffy girl stuff, like decorating and making things pretty. Now, I have to say that in my experience at this job, the girls tend to decorate better than the guys, and the guys were stronger than the girls, but we were a small team and we all had to carry our own weight together. Sometimes the teams sent out were all girls or all guys or a mix of the two. You couldn't let gender roles come into play as the job just wouldn't let you. You all had to work hard and do your part. I told the girls that I would talk to him about it. I also felt bad, so I started to try to take more shifts with him on my own, in order to maybe help show him the light and limit his exposure to my coworkers. I'll be honest, I absolutely hate confrontation. Like I dread it more than going to the dentist. So me being a total chicken, I never did confront him directly about what the girls were telling me. Instead, I just tried to work with him more to take the proverbial bullet for the team. I should have just went to the dentist. Bowlerbeard and I would do these events together, and I'd experience the same thing the others did, except he'd throw in, "Monk better appreciate me taking care of his woman like this," or, "I don't want you to chip a nail or mess up your hair." Monk would never forgive me. I started to dread going to work. I was getting anxiety from what he would do next, and or how he would embarrass me at work. I tried to tell Monk about it. "Monk, Bowlerbeard is being too Bowlerbeardish at work. He keeps treating the girls like we're glass dolls or something, and it's affecting our ability to work." Sounds like typical Bowlerbeard. You know him though, babe, he's just being chivalrous and a gentleman. He's harmless. I tried to explain further, but I really think that they had been friends for so long that Monk was just immune to his friend's eccentricities. Now, a thing I forgot to mention about Bowlerbeard is hygiene, which was basically non-existent. He had yellow, blackish teeth with this sticky, slimy-looking film on them that had flecks of black in it. I gag just saying this. He was also very greasy, lots of acne under his facial hair, which was also greasy and unkempt. He always had a miasma about him of BO, which smelled like vinegar that was poured over dirty gym clothes. I had noticed it before, but since my time with him used to be limited to a monthly barbecue or something, I never really put too much thought into it. I mean, sometimes guys just smell. But now I'm spending more time with Bowlerbeard than I am with my boyfriend, Monk. The stench is now super noticeable for me, and I can't chalk it up to boys will be boys, especially when my supervisor came and told me. EP, we need to talk about your friend Bowlerbeard. The others have come to me telling me that he smells awful and they don't want to ride in the same vehicle with him anymore. I'm going to talk to him unless you want to try and handle it. I'm so sorry about this. Bowlerbeard is my friend, so he's my responsibility. Let me talk to him first. So, mustering up all of my courage as the lead staffer, I went to confront my odoriferous friend. Hey, Bowlerbeard, can we talk? We have a slight issue that I need your help with. Sure, EP. I've always got time for a damsel in distress. Yeah. So there have been some complaints I've been hearing around the office about your... My what? I'm the hardest worker here, and everyone knows that. It's not that, it's your hygiene. People have been saying you smell, that you smell like BO, and aren't even using the body spray after setting up events. Of course I'm not using the spray. That stuff will kill you. It's full of chemicals, and that stuff's bad for you. That's also why I don't use deodorant or toothpaste. That stuff doesn't belong on the human body. Wait, what? You know, our ancestors never used deodorant or toothpaste. If we were meant to need that stuff, evolution would have built it into us. The human body has everything it needs naturally. That stuff is just making you weaker, but not me. I don't use that stuff so my body develops an immunity. I'm all natural. You girls just aren't used to real man smell. It's my natural fragrance. And he lifts up his arms as if to shoot a spray of his man smell for me to sample. So, you never brush your teeth either? What about showering? Once every 2 weeks, sometimes less. Your body naturally develops bacteria on your skin to protect it. That's why skin is oily. It's a protective layer our body secretes, same for your teeth. So this is all to make you stronger. Exactly, plus my masculine pheromones are more effective without those masking agents like deodorant or cologne. My body is more resilient to germs than most men because I have built up a natural immunity by not using all that fake stuff. Oh, I see, okay. Well, I just wanted to let you know the office gossip. Then quite bravely I ran away with super anxiety and being grossed out. I went home and showered immediately after work because I felt extra dirty just from talking to him. Like I had just revealed the truth behind the grossness, and it was worse than I could ever have expected. I wish I could say I was able to change his ways and things got better at work, but they didn't. I chickened out and asked my supervisor if she could handle talking to him instead, which she did. He got better for a couple weeks, then reverted back to his normal self, shunning all things hygienic to boost his immunity. I would leave shortly after this to take a new job, but I still hear from my old co-workers ranting about horror stories involving Bowlerbeard. To their credit, they never blamed me for getting him hired there. Not to my face, at least. And when I'd see Bowlerbeard on the off times the friends got together, he'd say work was great, and he was getting tons of compliments from the supervisor and co-workers. I think he was in super denial that he was not liked. Eventually, he was fired from that job as well for, you guessed it, bad hygiene. There was other stuff too, but basically he didn't make probation. They had a year to get rid of new employees for no cause if they wanted. But in this case, I think their cause was totally reasonable. 3. My neckbeard roommate. I'm just going to do quick bullet points here. 1. He's nearly 30 and has less than $1,000 saved in total, because he constantly pays for video games, DVDs, streaming subscriptions, etc., and has insane spending habits. He bragged to me about this measly 1,000 as if it was impressive at this point in his life. 2. He's almost 300 pounds and thinks he's hot shit. He's been my friend in college, and I've lived with him for a year. He chronically pursues girls way out of his league. Skinny, gorgeous girls that wear sexy clothing and makeup on the daily, while he showers only every other day and wears t-shirts and jeans. 3. He sincerely thinks he's Batman. I wish I was kidding. but he's been working on this story for like his entire life that involves a self-insert character that is just Batman. Literally just Batman. The character wears all black, including a mask, was inspired to be a hero due to the death of his parents, etc., etc., etc. He's made it clear the character is inspired by Batman, and is completely obsessed with everything Batman. Of course, this character is muscly and attractive, which he looks nothing like. 4. He thinks he's a minority because he's 1/16th Native American. He mentions it constantly, takes advantage of every governmental benefit program associated with it, and often compares himself and his people to black people, etc. It's insufferable. He's white as shit. Also, his cringy self-insert is essentially named Strong Tree. I can't give the exact name for anonymity reasons, but rest assured, that's the gist of it. Because that's his Native American name. 5. He tries to hook up with girls on dating sites, but they keep standing him up. He has no idea why. 6. He subscribes to a Friends OnlyFans page. 7. He's very slow-witted, but acts very pretentious. For example, he'll repeat exactly what you just said as if it were original thought, and does this so often, I've given up calling him out for it. He takes ages to respond to basic questions. At the same time, once he starts talking, he acts like a professor beginning some highly sophisticated lecture, dominating the conversation, going on and on in his slow-brained way of talking, ignoring you if you try to interrupt his multiple hour-long lectures and using phrases like, "Of course," etc., etc. He thinks he's inventing the wheel every time he opens his mouth. 8. He has repeated my same words back to me so many times, often by first going, "Well, it's actually like," or something to that obnoxious tune, that I've told him off for not thinking before he speaks, and told him that he should actually listen to people when they talk to him, instead of just talking over them and ignoring their input. Now he loudly clears his throat in the most pretentious narcissistic way possible before every sentence, claiming it would satisfy my complaints because now he sounds as if he's thinking before he speaks. Yes, he's that stupid. 9. He's messy as fuck. I'm constantly picking up after him because he leaves trash everywhere, it's just embarrassing. 10. He has a brother with severe autism, but acts as if he's too smart and mature for his brother despite constantly displaying similar issues. He also states that he thinks he's better than mentally impaired people or people that take medication because he's stronger than them and doesn't need it. He's a fat, lazy, miserable person that spends all day in bed and can't take any criticism, which are just classic signs of depression. But he's just too good for psychiatric help, apparently. He said all this insulting shit while knowing that I take medication and see a psychiatrist. 11. Anytime you give him the slightest bit of constructive criticism, he loudly sighs, sulks, and glares at you, as if you're so beneath him and you've angered some infinitely wiser being, when in reality he's behaving like a pouting child. 12. I had to tell him to tuck in his shirts, wear clothes that fit, etc., rather than let his hairy stomach hang out all the time. Really? 13. He picks his nose in front of me. 14. His room is the worst neckbeard nest I've ever seen. Clothes and trash so piled up I never see the floor. Meanwhile, our living room is filled with stupid fucking DVDs everywhere, and he keeps buying more and more, even though we have so little space and everything is digital now. I have no idea why he does it. It's useless clutter to me. Our walls are plastered with anime posters. 15. He has a katana. Yes, really. More than one. 16. He doesn't know what a neckbeard is and gets sulky when I try to explain the concept to him, even though I feel I owe it to him to know what people think of him, and I do try to be sensitive about it. He has so little self-awareness he can't comprehend why any of this is cringy. When I first moved in, he puts moves on me, which is the real neckbeard thing of it all. My first night at his apartment, he humored that his ex-girlfriend was always attracted to his big butt, as if that was supposed to be a turn-on for me. It was completely out of context. I was freshly out of a long-term relationship of 2 years, and the loss was still very devastating, so this was all especially discomforting. I took up being his roommate because my home life was hellish, and this was my only escape. While knowing both these things, he proceeded to say several times over the next few months that he thought we should be a couple. Each time I tried to let him down easy, saying we didn't have enough in common, etc. But he didn't really listen. Things finally went too far when I was modeling for photos, and he basically perved on me saying I looked good, while also implying that the photos were inappropriate or something to be ashamed of. It really pushed me over the edge, and culminating in me loudly telling him off, and going on a heated rant about how sick of this stuff I was. He cried over it, but then afterwards finally seemed to get it. We've been really good friends, and live together happily now, and both pursue dating with other people comfortably. So he's actually made major improvement. That being said, the rest of these details haven't changed. He still pursues only thin, gorgeous women, and lacks a level of self-awareness, and makes naive mistakes a lot. He's awkward and kind of clueless. And we still live in an apartment loaded with anime merch, video games, figurines, and just excessive geek merch wall to wall, but he's learned not to dominate conversations anymore. Even if he does so a bit ancily, like a kid fidgeting and waiting for their turn to speak, he's grown a lot. I made this post to vent and humor in his worser qualities, because living with someone like this full-time inevitably builds up and makes me want to go off. But yeah, he's my best friend nowadays. 4. The half year I spent trying to befriend, understand, and reform Sammybeard is time I can never get back. The experiences and conversations, the manipulation, and the smells. Oh God, the smells are things that will forever be at the forefront of my collection of cursed memories. As much as I wish I could cram them down into balls of nothing and forget any of it ever happened, I think remembering all those events and emotions and learning from them is not only healthier, but also it means that at least some good can come from knowing Sammy. I can barely begin to dredge up all those cringe-inducing memories without feeling like I need a scalding shower. Or better yet, one of those full-body, several-step decontamination showers at hospitals where guys in PPE help rid you of chemical or biological substances. But as to how and why I came into contact with Sammybeard, it was more of being forced together in a tight-knit work environment that enabled access to me. He was kitchen and prep staff, and I mainly worked behind the bar and waitressing on the floor. Sammy gets his name from the fact that he mostly prepared sandwiches when working in the kitchen, albeit poorly. I think you know where the beard comes from, but we'll keep that in the back burner for now. I didn't meet Sammy until a few days into my new job, and really, I didn't think of him with any of the same vitriol like I do now. He seemed a bit socially awkward and nerdy, but so was I. I was also thrilled to find solidarity in the fact that he played video games, liked comics, and tabletop. The only negative things I could say about Sammy was that the dude always stank a bit with varying degrees, and was greasy from his floppy-stained baseball cap to his weirdly baggy jeans that swam around his legs, even though he was obese. We made a point of talking to each other during shifts when there was downtime, chatting about whatever. I was pleased that I had made a new friend, especially since moving to the area that summer. It was Sammy who brought up tabletop. He asked me candidly what I liked to do for fun, and I admitted my interest in D&D, something that I felt was acceptable to share with him. I say that because more often the mention that you play pretend wizards and goblins by rolling dice will bring to mind a distasteful stereotype of an out-of-shape basement-bound geek sweating over his sexy elf ranger mini. Or you get those people from the 70s and 80s that still believe that D&D is some sort of devil-worshipping game, hence the era of Satanic Panic. But Sammy was absolutely ecstatic when I said I had an interest in playing. He gives me the name of the Discord server he runs, and tells me he and a few others would be interested in starting up a new game if I was down. I was eager to accept. Well, Sammy spent the next week organizing players for our campaign. Waterdeep, Dragon Heist. I could barely contain my excitement at playing again. I thought up character ideas whenever I could, and drew out sketches on my iPad of elves, tieflings, and turtles. Eventually I settled on being a young half-elf rogue. While Sammy wouldn't be DMing, he'd be a part of our group. When he found out I could draw recognizable shapes, he was insistent that I draw his blonde, Aryan, Viking-esque blood hunter. I didn't balk at it because I was so happy to have a friend, and I got right to work. Sadly, I didn't finish it in time for the first D&D session, but no big deal. I had gathered my snacks, my cozy blanket, and my note-taking journal in front of my laptop, ready to pulverize some hapless gnolls and get in rowdy tavern brawls, all standard fare. But what wasn't expected was the room of people I was drafted into. Yeah, sure, Discord has a rep for drawing in all types. But I find myself in a lobby of all guys with Pepe Frog and similar 4chan meme profile pics, nasally waxing poetic about Squicky's sexual conquests in previous campaigns between PCs, dabbled with chuckles and guffaws. The conversation had already switched to PC gaming when I spoke up. I introduced myself and asked where Sammy was, and sure enough, I heard Sammy's signature wheeze.
Ah, so Chunky Egg. I see you've decided to join us. Guys, this is my friend. Be nice to her.
I greeted everyone in chat, even a few who expressed worry about a girl player, and another who made a suggestion that I was Sammy's lady. I quickly cleared that out of the way, rather embarrassed. But the game quickly begun, and we plunged headfirst into Waterdeep. The session was okay, and my PC was well received. Sammy commented that my character's youthfulness and innocence brought a nice contrast to the otherwise grizzled gang. Everyone seemed to agree on that point, and I was very pleased with myself. My only gripes were the party's fondness for slipping in middle school-esque innuendos, and even racial, misogynistic, homophobic insults and remarks in a majority of the exchanges. Racial as in not in D&D races, but real-world ethnicities. Sammy would also get off track and make the DM recap a part of the story, because he'd been playing a video game in the background while incessantly wheezing from inhalation of weed fumes. I think the most egregious sin of all, besides being a mix of disruptive and distracted, was the way he underutilized his player class. The Bloodhunter class has so much potential to be a game changer when you fully read and digest the mechanics. But all Sammy did was have his Bloodhunter wave a great sword around without activating his blood rights, while not being skilled with said great sword, but being great with archery. All he really had going for him was one or two amusing bits he had with his mini-mimic. He also complained when he failed to deal any significant damage, and would just regress into playing Battlefield 5 in the middle of combat. I really hoped to have a better understanding of D&D after playing with who I thought was a seasoned player, but Sammy left little for me to admire or compliment. Even compared to a casual like me, he was by no means a great or even competent player. His PC's only discernible traits were being tall and speaking in a Russian accent. With one-worded answers, or just straight-up grunts, it made for atrocious RP. But after we established our party, sessions became regular and I started seeing more and more of Sammy. Overall, I considered him a friend. A weirdly moist and socially inept friend, but well-meaning and misunderstood, at least for the time being. 5. I dropped out of high school early on. That's for a different story. However, when I went back to high school, I had to do so as an adult. So, enter adult ed. My friend and I were two of an extremely few adults in a pond of teenagers, and I was married at this time. All of this is important. This was back in my trench coat wearing days. I would wear it inside if it wasn't too hot. I had long, dark hair, and I usually kept to myself. This alternative high school was only so big that all the classes fit into one hallway and a couple rooms outside. The school was small, so word traveled extremely fast, and everyone knew everyone. I kept hearing of this tale of a sub that would preach about Jesus before class, claims something and follows it with,
"So we will do the work together,"
and then promptly tells the class the answers to homework. Regardless of this, the kids hated her and called her Jesus Lady. Even our favorite teacher would rather come to class on her deathbed if she was the only sub available, if it meant that we didn't have to deal with Jesus Lady. My friend and I never had a class with her until one day, when our economics teacher fell ill. We heard rumors that Jesus Lady was a sub, so we got all excited about it. We finally get to see Jesus Lady in action. When it was time for that class, we wasted no time and crossed the hall to our classroom. I told you the school was small. And there stood a lady that was a bit pudgy, not judging, just describing. She had dark skin and curly black hair. My first thought was, "Oh, no, none." We sat down and waited for her Jesus speech. We didn't expect what came next. She started with,
"Not one man can cure cancer, so let's do this work together.
She continues to tell us the answers, and we were disappointed. No Jesus speech. So my friend Zephyr and I went to completing the work ahead of schedule, like the nerds we were. When Jesus Lady, I think, was finished doing the work for the kids, she walked over to my desk and started rocking back and forth on the balls of her feet, like an excited kid about to confess they think a girl is cute. She says to me,
"You listen to Marilyn Manson?"
"What the fuck? Is this goddamn Jesus Lady or not?" I looked at Zephyr. He shrugs. "I used to." I was not going to tell her I had his new CD. She smiled.
"I knew it. Once he gets his claws into you, he never lets go. Damn it, the trench coat."
I got up to turn in my next paper and returned to continue my work.
"You like Tool?"
How does she know these bands?
"How about Orgy?"
Holy crap, she can read my mind. Seriously, is this Jesus Lady or isn't she? She is listing all the bands that I listen to. And I figured that someone that preaches about Jesus before telling the class all the answers would not even have heard of them. I continue to ignore her.
"That's enough teasing you, isn't it?"
She finally said. I looked up at her curtly and say, "Yeah." She gave me the girliest smile and walked away. Zephyr leans over me and whispers,
"Dude, she was flirting with you. She watched you as you walked to the turn-in."
So we made it to the next class, our English teacher again. "So, you two survived Jesus Lady." "Was that even Jesus Lady?" I exclaimed. Everyone looked at me oddly. "Yes, why?" We explained what happened. My teacher went and closed the door and asked for details. One of the kids that knew me well said,
"Dang, if she annoyed you that much, there must be something wrong. You put up with the most annoying kids in school."
It turns out that yes, that was Jesus Lady. The kids from that class that had her before were even confused about her talking about cancer and then flirting with me. Then it hit me. I was the reason why she didn't talk about Jesus. Because she thought that I was goth and or punk because I wore a trench coat. And obviously I didn't follow Christ because I listened to Marilyn Manson. So to flirt with me, she didn't mention anything about Jesus. Keep in mind, she did not know how old I was. Most of the kids and even a couple of teachers thought I was at most 17. I was around 25 at this time. I could have went to jail for even looking at these kids wrong. Thankfully, or sad for you guys, I never had a run-in with Jesus Lady again. However, I would have skipped class if she subbed for any teachers I had, and they all would have understood why. Ugh. Still so creepy thinking about it. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Neckbeards in the Wild, episode 61. And thank you very much to everyone who allowed me to use and sent in stories for use in this video. If you liked the video, then please do tip your fedora at the like button, or possibly just click and or boop it with your finger/mouse. Lovely. Right, to answer a question from the story about the roommate with the messy the anime figures and the DVDs, although that sounds really out of control, I think it's still a good idea to collect physical media. I started doing it last year because there was a few TV shows, mostly, that I couldn't get on streaming services, and streaming services are great, they're convenient, can take them anywhere with you. You just need to log into your account. But there's stuff you can't get, or it's not available worldwide, like in my case, Frasier, Sliders, West Wing, all the shows, haven't been able to get them on the various Netflix, Disney Plus, Amazon Prime. I've even got BritBox. I could probably do with having less, to be honest with you. BritBox will go away though, because I've only got that until I'm done watching the old episodes of Doctor Who, and so that's meant to be temporary. But I'll need to actually get my finger out and get around to actually watching them again. But yeah, I like my physical media for things like that. And when I don't have a lot of time, because I read professionally, I read for a living, I don't have a lot of time to sit down and relax to read books. So I get through a lot of audiobooks that way. But when I really like the audiobook, I figure I might want to actually sit down and read it at some point. So I tend to buy a physical copy of the book as well in that case. Although your physical media should be on shelves and it shouldn't dominate the room. Okay, with that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, Thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.